we did a pre-recorded interview just not too long ago, a couple hours before this live stream, with the lovely Foad Izadi, associate professor at the University of Tehran. So let's go ahead and go to that interview. Hello, everyone. I'm Rania Khalek, and this is Breakthrough News Live. U.S. Iran talks to end the war have now stalled more than 2 months into the conflict as Washington reportedly considers escalating pressure with a blockade of Iranian ports. So what's really happening behind the scenes? Joining me now is Foad Izadi, Associate Professor of World Studies at the University of Tehran. Foad, thank you so much for being with me again.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So let's just jump right into it. You know, we started out the week with Iran putting forth this new proposal to end the war. Washington is saying they're not happy with it. Can you talk a bit about what Iran's proposal actually includes?
Iran, as you know, was interested in a diplomatic solution. A diplomatic solution was available in February, according to the Omani foreign minister. He said he could have an agreement in 24 hours in his interview with CBS News. Trump was interested in war, and I don't think the United States is trying to reach an agreement or is interested in an agreement. The Iranians gave the U.S. another chance in Islamabad, and after that meeting, the Iranian ports were blockaded 24 hours after that meeting. Blockading a country is an act of war in international law, in U.S. law. And when you are negotiating, you are supposed to negotiate in good faith. That's also international law. And good faith means you don't shoot at the other side. This is what the U.S. Did 24 hours before the next round. Remember, they went to Islamabad, and then after some days they were supposed to return. So 24 hours after the meeting, we had the blockade. About 24 hours after the next round, we had the first Iranian ship shot at and taken over by U.S. Government. So the feeling here in Tehran is that United States is not interested in reaching an agreement, and when you're negotiating in good faith, you also lower rhetoric. You see how Trump talks about Iran, uses profanity. Yesterday he said that they need to come cry uncle. Why would they want to do that, especially when the other side is Trump, given the fact that he was the person that left the previous agreement that Iran had with the United States. So overall, I think the decision here is to provide him with an exit ramp whenever he wants to use it. It seems he is not interested in having Iran give him that opportunity. And we have this war powers resolution that's supposed to happen. A vote is supposed to happen in the U.S. Congress. Tomorrow is the 60th day since Trump notified the U.S. Congress about this war. And as you know, based on U.S. law, if he doesn't get an approval from the U.S. Congress, the war is going to be illegal tomorrow. So he not only has violated international law, he's going to be violating the U.S. law if he doesn't get an approval from the U.S. Congress tomorrow. So overall, I think the attitude here is to wait and see what he wants to do. We had a statement from the head of Iran's aerospace division today, saying that the country is ready to use these ballistic missiles again if necessary. A few days ago, we had the Joint Chief of Staff saying that they're getting tired of the blockade and their patience is running out. So, and we have reports from places like Axios that are reporting that the U.S. is preparing for another round of attacks on Iran. So overall, the opportunity for diplomacy is still available to the United States. From what we see here, he is not interested in diplomacy because he's not negotiating in good faith. And the timing of anti-Iran actions in the United States is designed to not reach an agreement. So we have to wait and see what will happen next. What will not happen is Iran will not be able to do what Trump wants Iran to do. That's not going to happen. Iran had some offers with regard to its nuclear program before the start of the war, but those offers were designed to avoid war. Now that they have attacked Iran, then Iran's offer is not going to be as good as what Iran had in February. So overall, I think the best thing that can happen is that we have had some people, Republican senators, saying that they'll vote with Trump until the 60th day, and then after that they need to reassess. 4 senators, Republican senators, have said that. We had last time they voted, 51 votes were in favor of war. If he loses 2 out of 4, then he's not going to get the vote he needs in the U.S. Senate. Similar thing is happening in the House. Maybe that would be a solution, an off-ramp. If he follows the law, then he needs to stop based on this War Powers Act. And at the end of the day, the U.S. Congress is supposed to fund this war. You saw Hexit going to the Congress yesterday. We had a lot of Democratic members of U.S. House criticizing him, asking good questions. What was the cost of Tomahawk missiles that hit that Iranian school, girls' school, on the first day of war? Good questions. He's not. He couldn't answer any of these questions. So I think the attitude here is that we have to see whether Trump is going to choose diplomacy or he wants to continue war, and I think Iran is ready for both cases.
Well, so, on that note, Trump is claiming that Iran is, earlier this week, I'm sure you saw, he was claiming Iran is in a state of collapse and essentially is asking for relief. Though it seems like perhaps that might be a bit of projection. And then at the same time, he's also saying that, according to reports in the Wall Street Journal, that the U.S. is preparing to extend the blockade of Iranian ports, to choke off oil exports, which of course the Iranians have called state-sponsored piracy. So Trump seems to be kind of continuing this sort of unsettled settlement where he escalates without actually bombing. And so I'm just curious how much pressure, if any, that's actually putting on Iran, and how long do you think the Iranian government is willing to allow that to continue without any sort of response, the sort of blockade of the blockade?
He predicted that all Iranian oil pipelines will blow up by yesterday. I can tell you that they're working fine. His calculation was that with Iran not being able to export oil and the capacity to store at zero, then this would be, in his words, permanent damage to these oil facilities. I don't know who's advising him on Iran's oil industry. Netanyahu probably, because what 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 he's saying is not accurate. Um, of course, Iran has been under an economic warfare for 47 years. It's amazing how the country is surviving. It's not supposed to, you're not supposed to survive for 47 years with all these sanctions. And of course, the blockade is causing problems. Iran's main access to international markets were through the Strait of Hormuz. There are some ships that are going to Iranian ships, so it's not the U.S. capacity to control is not 100%, but they have taken over some ships. Iran has about 6,000 kilometers of land borders. Iran has another sea in the north, the Caspian Sea, that connects Iran to Russia. On the other side, you have the Black Sea. There are good roads between the Black Sea and Caspian Sea through Russian territory. Iran's foreign minister was in Russia just a few days ago. The news that you saw is Russia realizes that having Trump go on a rampage and attack Iran and other places, not a good idea, not in line with anybody's interest, including Russia. It's not in line with U.S. interest. So, the government here, they are making policies to make sure that the imports come through other routes. With regard to export of oil, it's going to be more difficult because Iranian oil is concentrated on the southern part of the country. But I think Iran can manage longer and sort of live with this economic pain longer in comparison to U.S. It's unfortunate that Americans are paying higher gas prices. They will be paying that as long as Trump continues this policy. Iranians have this culture of resistance, and that helps Iran. People in the United States have this culture of spending too much, and I don't think they're ready for the economic shock that's going to yet to come. We are not at the peak levels yet, and it's unfortunate, but they need to blame Netanyahu and Trump for starting this war, and putting pressure on people who are funding the war in the U.S. Congress could be useful. The main problem is that the things that Trump wants from Iran cannot give him. He says he wants to take over Iranian oil. Iran cannot do that. He cannot change Iran's government. He has united Iranians extensively. Every night, millions of people come to the streets. I don't know if you have seen the pictures, shouting against Trump and Netanyahu.
I do want to ask you on that note, because it's all basically what you're saying is in this sort of like game, I don't want to call it a game, and this war of kind of who's going to blink first, right? That's what Trump is trying to do, is try to get Iran to blink first. You're saying that the Iranians can actually withstand more pain in this case than the Americans can, and also in many ways the rest of the world can. And so as long as these talks are stalled, I guess I'm curious, when you talk about the Iranians being united, how have things shifted within Iranian society in terms of support for resisting U.S. aggression? What was it like before this war, and what is it like now?
We had three groups of people in Iran. The first group, families, the segment of society that did the revolution in 1979. Of course, this is 47 years ago, so their children, their grandchildren, some of the people involved with the revolution, of course, are still around. They didn't want the Shah because he was a corrupt, ruthless dictator, an American puppet. They created the revolution. It was a massive, popular uprising of people. And they continued to support their countries. Iran support other resistant front countries, other organizations that are trying to do what Iranians did in 1979, free themselves from American-Israeli hegemony. So that's the first category. We have a second category of people who watch things. This is not unique to Iran. In every society, you have a segment of society that's not involved in activism. They are, basically not too much involved with what's going on. And because of economic pressures, they had difficulties. The lower segments of this category. And then the third category, a tiny percent of population that supports outside opposition. Why are they so small? Because people who were around in 1979, very few people supported the Shah. That's why he had to flee the country. Overwhelming majority wanted him to be out. So their numbers were quite small in 1979. And in the last number of decades, that number has stayed more or less the same, maybe even less. And then what happened in the last few months was that that third category population became even less after they realized that Pahlavi is another puppet. He visited Israel 2 times in the middle of genocide. And these rallies that some of Pahlavi people have, I don't know if you have noticed, but they make sure to have Israeli flags. They always carry Israeli flags.
It's wild.
Which is amazing, because not a good PR exercise. You look at majority of Americans now don't like what Israelis are doing, and you have these people, Middle Eastern looking, carrying Israeli flag. Not a good idea for your image internationally. This is how foolish they are. Unfortunately, we have to use these words sometimes. So that third category population is even less. So I used to say that their numbers are less than 1% before. Now I don't know, less than 0.1% maybe. And the first category, of course, they come to these rallies at night, every night. Tonight, I think, is the 60th night. And then the people in the second category, they come. Not because they supported the government, but because they realized that Trump wants Iran and Iranian oil, and he wants to disintegrate Iran. I hope you get a chance to come. We have international flights working now. When you come, you see ladies that look like you without a scarf, waving the flag, Iranian flag, waving Hezbollah flag. This is really strange. It's not as strange in Lebanon. In Lebanon, you have Hezbollah supporters with hijab, with a scarf, and then you have Christians who are Hezbollah supporters. We have some Christian groups that support Hezbollah. Of course, they don't wear hijab; they are not Muslims. And some Muslims who don't wear hijab but So you have seen this in Lebanon for many years, that in rallies you have people that carry Hezbollah flag that don't look like traditional. They don't have the traditional look of Hezbollahis, as we call them here. And you're seeing that in Iran now, which is very, very interesting. So Trump has managed to unite Iranians more than any Iranian politician could ever do. And people realize that this is a huge value, because they realize if they are united, then it would be very difficult to break a country that's united. In his tweets, you see Trump is saying that Iranians are fighting with each other and they don't know who their leader is. These are all Trump talk, baseless. He's trying to say that he's in charge. Maybe he can convince those Republican senators to vote with him again. I don't know why he's doing that. Maybe he wants to calm the oil markets or other reasons. But overall, I think what we are seeing today is very similar to what Iran saw in 1979. Because at that time, you had this huge portion of the Iranian population, almost everybody, united under one goal. The goal in 1979 was to kick Shah out, and they did it. And the goal today is to kick Trump's behind, because he's you know what he said when he was talking to the Saudi crown prince, that he needs to come and kiss his behind. He's using another word. So that behind is a target of Iranians, and they're looking forward to kick that behind and make Trump feel the pain.
Well, Foad Izadi, I want to thank you once again for joining us to help break all this down. We really appreciate it and hope to talk to you again soon.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.